We're finally to the last week of the season. Week 16 is done.
It's in the books.
No, we're not. I'm not going to say that. I've gone the entire season without saying that, Bryce. So we're not going to say it.
Without saying it's in the books? Is
It's
that
in
a
the
problem?
books, yeah. He went the entire season without saying it's in the books, but week 16, my friend, rest assured, it is in the books.
It is. And he put it in there.
Let's talk about Daniel's game, actually.
Yeah, woo!
Seattle
How'd
Seahawks
that go?
decided
It
to
sucked.
just
They
destroy.
Yeah,
That's loosely, you loosely said.
42-13 final score.
Yeah.
Big win for Seattle. It actually puts them in better playoff contention as far as where they could end up.
San Francisco loses and they win. That's their division.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Who would
And
have thought
even
that coming
though-
in with a rookie quarterback?
Yeah.
That's pretty much 3 rookie quarterbacks at the moment.
Guaranteed in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Guaranteed.
Yeah. That's ridiculous. I wonder if that's ever. I'd like to research
Actually,
that.
the Redskins aren't guaranteed yet.
They're not guaranteed, but they're pretty close to getting in.
what did Kaepernick do? Colin Kaepernick do that was just so awful during this game because he didn't play well.
He didn't throw more touchdowns.
Yes.
And when you get rid of Vernon Davis goes out with a concussion. That
big
kills.
I believe Mario
Big
Manningham
is
also.
done, yes.
Yeah, he's also out. So that's another weapon
Yes.
that he's not going to have at his
Do you
disposal.
go back to Alex Smith?
I mean, fuck. Why?
I mean, if you don't have as many weapons around you, don't you have to go with a more mobile quarterback that can give you another option?
I wouldn't have went off of Alex Smith. I would have stuck with Alex Smith from.
I would have as well, but now that you have Kaepernick in the backfield,
He's in there.
he's a dual threat. And when you take
Kaepernick is shorter in the backfield.
no, he's in the
Okay.
backfield.
Yes.
You gotta have a dual threat option quarterback, and you don't have a lot of weapons around you. That's why RG3 is doing such a great job in Washington because he doesn't have a lot of weapons around him.
True. Let's move on to the Baltimore game. Baltimore versus New York. New York continues to slide. It just seems like they're playing their worst football at the time
Worst
they
time.
normally
Yeah, worst part of
that they
time.
normally play really well.
Baltimore clinched their division with that win.
33-14 victory for the Ravens.
It's very uncharacteristic of the Giants to have this type of a slide late in the season.
Eli's not playing well. He's not.
That whole team's not playing
true.
well.
I mean, I think they're injury depleted. I think Ahmad Bradshaw's been hurt.
Mhm.
That kills them. Even with Wilson as their backup running back, I really think the Giants actually
They
have
had a lot
a
of
really,
fumbles that
really
game.
good shot of not making the playoffs this
I
year.
They're not
100%
going to
agree. I don't
yeah,
believe
I-
they're.
I-
I don't
they're
believe
not
they're
going to be in there.
The Ravens, on the other hand, are in
They're
the playoffs.
playoffs.
They have the NFC
Amazingly.
North completely clinched, so they will be in the
How
playoffs.
bad is the NFC North? I mean, if
AFC
the-
North? Excuse me.
AFC,
I
yeah,
apologize.
AFC North. How bad is
AFC
that?
North
The
sucks,
Ravens
too.
already had that clinch with the slide they've had late in the season. I mean, that's.
They had a real good start, though.
They did.
I think
And it's
they're-
the opposite of what the Bengals. The Bengals had a horrible start,
and-
but have caught fire as of late.
Moving on to the Chicago Bears versus the Arizona Cardinals. Bears win 28-13. It's a big win for Chicago simply
Get them in the
because
playoffs, huh?
they
Yeah.
have a shot at the playoffs. If they win, Minnesota loses, they're in the playoffs.
That's all they need.
That's,
Yep.
I mean, it's
Very
a simple.
viable. Very,
And
very
Chicago's
viable.
playing Detroit this week. Minnesota's playing Green Bay,
Green
so
Bay.
it's a really, really good chance that Chicago's going to make the playoffs and kick Minnesota out of the playoffs. But is Chicago a threat in the playoffs?
No, they're not even a threat during the season.
Bryce?
I would say if that defense can play like it did earlier in the season, they could be a threat depending on who they play, where they play them, in certain matchups.
Well, they're pretty much going to be in a wild card
Away-
position
away
anyway.
team.
Okay,
They're either
so
gonna be- yeah.
they're either going to play.
Seattle, San Francisco, or Dallas or
Washington.
Washington.
I would
All
say
those are loses. It's maybe Washington. They could probably beat Washington or Dallas.
I see the Bears possibly beating Washington or Dallas if they go to their home field. I agree with you on that one.
Denver wins a big game, 34-12. They just continue to roll.
Man.
My Super Bowl.
Minnesota pulls off a big victory against Houston, keeps their playoffs hopes alive. Minnesota's actually doing really well.
and
Adrian
without
Peterson.
Peterson in this game.
Only
Well,
80-something yards.
80-something yards for this game. Peterson continue. I think he's got 206 yards to break Eric Dickerson's record.
It's not going to happen.
I don't think it's going to happen against Green Bay either.
I agree.
But
Anything can happen.
I was talking to him about this. How many people in the AFC? I think there's only 2 real teams in the AFC. I think there's the Denver Broncos, and I think there's the New England Patriots. And I don't think there's any other realistically good team that any NFC opponent should be scared about if they face them in the Super Bowl. if just by some miracle one of those
And NFC has beaten up all those two
Yeah.
teams that you mentioned
Yeah.
in the AFC.
And let's be real. Denver and the Patriots, the two teams you mentioned, have an explosive offense on both sides.
and
Their
terrific
defense, especially the Patriots. Patriots defense lately has been crap.
Yep.
As far as when I say lately, the past few years.
Yes,
This
I agree.
year they've been stout.
Yep.
They're playing
Young.
better football. They're playing. They're ball hawking, which is really impressive. I really think the Patriots and Denver may actually meet up in the AFC playoffs.
That would
Because
be
I don't think.
terrific. That would be AFC Championship.
Yeah.
No, because they don't. It has to be.
It depends on what Houston does.
Right.
I don't consider Houston a viable option.
I 100% agree with you. I
I
consider
think
Houston
Houston-
or Baltimore a viable option.
Houston lost to a mediocre. And all apologies to Minnesota fans. Houston lost to mediocre Minnesota.
They had to go into overtime against Jacksonville, a bad Jacksonville team. They had to take it down to the last wire with a subpar Tennessee Titans team. I think they're when you saw the Texans and the Falcons at the beginning of the year with the same identical record, everybody said Houston's a real team. Houston's this, Houston's that, and they were saying the Falcons aren't this, the Falcons aren't that. Well, let's look at the Falcons now. Look at Houston now.
Well, a lot of it had to do with schedule, strength of schedule, that kind of thing. Which in the NFL, strength of schedule doesn't matter to me. In college, it's completely
32
different.
and 1 is the talent level is so marginal.
Cincinnati wins a big game against Pittsburgh, 13-10. Pretty much knocks Pittsburgh out of the playoff.
they're out.
Cincinnati actually gets into the playoffs with this win. Moving
They're another
on,
team, but they could cause some havoc.
Yes, they could.
Carolina 17-6 victory over the Oakland Raiders. They
Boring.
continue to play really good football. Carolina does at the end of the season, and
Cam Newton just really caught fire at the end.
sadly, where was he at the beginning of the season? Carolina actually had a little bit of promise minus their defense, but if Cam had played this way throughout the entire season, I really think that they could have
Playoffs.
played possible wild card.
Yes, I agree.
Moving on, Green Bay just completely destroyed Tennessee, 55-7. Like you said, Romo Rogers is back. San Diego gets a win,
Wow. Whoa.
27-17 over the Greg McElroy led Jets, and he was sacked 11 times in his debut.
Good God.
11 sacks.
At least he didn't run into his own offensive lineman and fumble it.
True. Patriots squeak out a victory against the Jacksonville Jaguars, 23-16.
No win's a win. They keep
It's
on
the
trucking.
NFL, and that's what I don't understand it with everybody. Is that they're like, well, they beat so and so. I'm like, it's the NFL.
Yeah, the talent level is very tiny between 32 and number 1
That's your bill.
or Chief.
27.
Especially a Bills fan.
Washington Redskins continue their playoff on 27-20 final
Next.
over the Eagles.
They got you scared, don't they?
This week's going to be interesting for you, and we'll hit on that in the next show.
I'm already nervous. It's only Thursday.
Miami 24-10 victory over the Bills.
Dolphins look real good at the end of this season. I have a lot of hope. Dolphins.
Tannehill's girlfriend.
Who'd they beat?
Tannehill's girlfriend. Okay.
Who did they beat?
Who'd they beat?
Oh, Chan Gailey.
I don't. The Georgia Tech guy?
Yeah.
They played Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
Played
That's
Georgia
what it
Tech.
was.
That's who it was. Georgia
New Orleans.
Next.
New Orleans Saints pull out an overtime victory.
Terrific game. Very, very
It was-
entertaining game from a third-party perspective, or even a Saints perspective. It was a very entertaining game.
How was
Both
it from
teams
a
back and
Cowboys
forth.
perspective?
It's awful. It was. I'm not even mad because we lost in such an odd play, like a 30-yard fumble down the field, and Jimmy Graham recovers, and I'm just like, you don't see that overtime. You don't see that every day.
34-31 final score. Saints beat Dallas in overtime. Indianapolis continues their playoff run. They won. They got into the playoffs
They are
with
in.
this victory against the Chiefs. Chiefs continue to struggle. They're probably going to be the number one overall.
Are we going to
pick
see the
next year.
Colts versus the Broncos? God, that would be nice. What if they knocked
Very
Manning
possible.
out?
That would be awesome.
Wouldn't it be
That would
awesome?
be so awesome.
I would love to
as
see
much
that.
as much as I like Manning and what the Broncos are doing right now, my man crush for Andrew Luck takes over in that situation.
Yes.
And poor Matt. Matt actually went to the game last week
Buddy,
against St.
they had a
Louis.
woodshed whipping.
And I was texting him throughout the game, and he was not happy.
St. Louis beat them?
28-13.
Oh my goodness.
He
Woodshed with
he was using some language about
Bad words.
Josh
Very, very wordy dirts.
28-13. Bucks are just they gave up when they lost to the Falcons. the last
if I
time.
remember, I was watching a Bucks game 2 weeks ago, and there was a little confrontation. I was at a bar, so I couldn't hear it. I didn't really know what was going on. But I saw a confrontation between a few Bucks players and some Bucks coaches. I don't know who the players were. I don't know who the coaches were. But when you see something like that on the sideline, that's just turmoil.
Is Graziano safe?
Yes.
This is his first year. I would say
That first year don't work for everybody, though.
that's very true. I would say he's safe for one more year, depending on what he.
Worst case
does.
scenario, he goes 6-10 in his first season in a young Tampa Bay Bucks team with a very injury plague. Granted, Tampa Bay's had an awful season as far as injuries.
I believe all their offensive line is pretty much hurt.
Most of their offensive line, including Carl Nix, who was just supposed to be their savior. I mean, let's be real. Mm-hmm. And but we'll see how Tampa Bay looks next year, especially in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on to the final game for the week, a Saturday game, which was the last quote-unquote Monday Night Football game. ESPN covered it. 31-18 final score. Matt Ryan throws 4 touchdowns against Detroit's defense.
Calvin Johnson
Gets the all-time record against Jerry Rice's receiving yards.
Like I was talking to a buddy of mine that works at Southwire with me. He's a big Detroit fan. I walked up to him. I said, "Y'all just got beat down, didn't y'all?" He says, "Calvin Johnson got that." I said, "Ask Dan Marino if he'd trade all his records for one
Now,
ring."
was Jerry Rice's was it a
1995, they made it to the playoffs that year.
Was that a 16-game season?
Yes, it was.
It was. Okay.
Yeah, it was.
I wasn't
1995.
sure. I was thinking it was a 14.
We got knocked out of the playoffs by the Cowboys that year.
In 95?
Yes.
That was the first year I remember watching the Cowboys when I was a little kid. Emmitt Smith and Troy Aikman.
That's because you were like 4.
I was sick, jerk.
Same difference, little baby.
But that's it for our Week 16 recap. I hope you guys have a great holiday week. Be sure to check out our Week 17 preview. For Bryce and Daniel, I'm Billy. Thanks
Happy
for watching,
Hanukkah.
guys.
Did we click it?